There are moments in life when the world seems to stop spinning, when the air around you turns thick and heavy, and you know that whatever comes out of someone's trembling mouth next will change everything forever. That is exactly how it felt the night she looked at me with eyes swollen from years of hiding and pain and whispered that she couldn't hold it in anymore. There was a tremor in her voice, a kind of desperation mixed with hope, as if she were standing on the ledge of a secret she had carried since childhood. I felt the weight of her unspoken truth pressing into the room, filling the silence between us until it seemed almost alive. And when she finally breathed the words she had spent years swallowing, I didn't hesitate. I told her it would stay between us, that this burden she had carried alone would finally have a second set of hands to hold it. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the courage it takes to speak your truth, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the Kindness Chronicles. Your support helps stories like this reach someone who may need it. Her name was Lila, and she had always been different in ways she couldn't explain, not to her family, not to her friends, and not even to herself for the longest time. She grew up in a strict household where the world was divided into right and wrong, acceptable and forbidden, seen and unseen. Her parents were the kind of people who prided themselves on discipline, on holding their children to impossible standards, on never showing weakness. So Lila learned early that some truths were not safe to share. She learned to smile when she wanted to cry and laugh when her heart felt like it was shattering. She learned that silence was sometimes the only shield a child had. I had known her since we were kids, long before the world taught us to hide the softest parts of ourselves. We grew up in the same neighborhood, walked the same cracked sidewalks lined with fading chalk drawings and crooked fences, played in the same sun-bleached yards. Even then, there was something about her. Something gentle, something fragile, something constantly fighting the heaviness around her. As the years passed and we grew older, that heaviness didn't go away. It simply grew smarter, hiding inside her smiles, tucked into the corners of her laughter, buried beneath her ability to pretend she was fine. By the time we were adults, she had become a master at appearing okay, the kind of person who could hold others together even while she herself was falling apart. She had friends who adored her, co-workers who admired her, and a family who believed they knew everything about her. But no one really saw her, not the real her, the one who kept her identity folded into the smallest, darkest corner of her heart. She carried it like a fragile glass sphere she was terrified to drop. She feared the shattering more than anything. When she reached out to me that night, it wasn't out of convenience or proximity. It was out of the quiet trust we had built over decades, the kind of trust that can only form between two people who have walked through both childhood wonder and adult storm together. She had called me, her voice barely above a whisper, and asked if I could come over. She said she was tired. Not physically tired, but tired in a way that went deeper than bone. Tired in the way people become when they've been pretending for far too long. Her apartment was dimly lit, the kind of soft amber glow that feels like a sanctuary after a long, exhausting day. She sat on the couch, knees drawn to her chest, fingers trembling around the edge of a blanket. I could see she had been crying for hours before I arrived. Her eyes were raw, her breathing uneven, her spirit aching. There was fear in her, but there was also something else, a fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, she was finally safe. Enough to stop running. She didn't come out to me in a burst of bravery or a triumphant declaration. It came out in small, broken pieces, fragments of who she was, who she had always been, who she had been taught to hide. She confessed her terror of losing the people she loved, her fear of disappointing her parents, her worry that she wasn't strong enough to face a world that could be cruel to those who dared to be different. She told me she had spent years convincing herself that her feelings were wrong, unnatural, something she needed to bury deep enough that even she couldn't feel them. But secrets have a way of clawing their way back to the surface, especially the ones that define who we are at our core. So when she finally said she couldn't hold it in anymore, I told her the one thing I knew she needed most in that moment, that her truth was safe with me. That she was safe with me. That whatever came next, she wouldn't have to face it alone. In the days that followed, something in her began to shift. She still woke up with fear in her chest, still battled the old voices in her mind that told her she was wrong for simply being who she was, but she also began to breathe differently, deeper, slower, freer. It was as if the weight she had carried for years had been lifted just enough for her to see the sky again. She started taking small steps toward herself, like learning how to speak about her identity without flinching, like letting herself imagine a future where she didn't have to hide, like allowing herself to feel small moments of joy without guilt. It wasn't easy. Healing rarely is. There were days when she felt brave, when her heart felt steady and strong, when she believed she could face anything. But there were also days when she felt fragile, when memories of rejection and shame flooded back, when she questioned whether she deserved love, acceptance, or happiness. There were nights when she was curled up on the couch shaking, afraid of the world outside and the thoughts inside her own mind. But with every wave of fear she survived, she grew a little stronger. She learned that courage wasn't the absence of fear, it was showing up anyway. Over time, her world began to open in ways she never imagined. She found online communities of people like her, people who understood her without needing explanation. She read stories of others who had walked the same path, who had fought the same battles, who had survived. Those stories became anchors, reminders that she was not alone, that her identity was not something to hide, that she deserved a life that didn't feel like a constant apology. And slowly, she allowed herself to dream. She dreamed of love, not the kind she was told she should want, but the kind that made her heart feel soft and warm and real. She dreamed of a life where she could walk down the street holding the hand of someone she loved without fear. She dreamed of acceptance, of freedom, of authenticity. She dreamed of becoming the version of herself she had always been too afraid to meet. Months passed, and she grew. She cried. She healed. She fought for herself in ways she once believed she wasn't capable of. And one day, she told me she was ready, not fully ready, not completely fearless, but ready enough to tell her family. Ready to stop living a half-life. Ready to stop hiding from the people she had spent her whole life trying to please. The night she planned to come out to them, she was a trembling mix of certainty and terror. She rehearsed what she would say, practiced steadying her voice, wrote and rewrote the words that felt too heavy for her heartbeat through her fingertips. When she finally stepped inside, I waited in the car, staring at the soft glow from their living room window, praying that the love inside that house would be stronger than the fear. The conversation inside lasted hours. Hours filled with raised voices, long silences, tears, confusion, and questions. But there was something else too, there was love. Flawed, uncertain, struggling love, but love nonetheless. And when she came back out, eyes red but shining with something close to relief, she whispered that while the night had been long and painful, she no longer felt invisible. Her truth was out. Her heart was exposed. And she was still standing. It would take time for her family to fully understand, to adjust, to grow, but that night marked the beginning of something new. Not perfection, not instant acceptance, but progress. And sometimes progress is enough to move mountains. Her journey didn't end there. She still had battles to fight, insecurities to confront, dreams to chase, and wounds to heal. But she was living now, really living. She laughed more freely, loved more openly, spoke more confidently, and embraced herself more fully. She began volunteering at LGBTQ+ youth centers, offering the kind of support she wished she had growing up. She shared her story with others in quiet coffee shops and online forums, hoping to be the voice she once needed. And through all of it, she became something she never believed she could be, proud that if you had seen her then, the way she walked with a steadier step, the way her eyes shone brighter, the way her smile reached deeper, you would never have guessed the years she spent buried under silence. She had become a testament to resilience, to the strength found in vulnerability, to the beauty of living one's truth. And every time she turned to me with gratitude in her eyes, I reminded her that she had done this. She had saved herself by finally choosing honesty over fear.